Hello, everybody. Welcome to another character building background meet in Geek for I Cast Fireball. I'm Jacob, your host for these special bonus episodes of Meet and Geek, where we dive into how we built our characters, the background process and motivations to bring these characters to life. With me tonight is a new character to our podcast, or at least, didn't start originally with us, but yet, since from the beginning, an old-time player, we have...
It's me, I'm Ned. Hello, I'm here today.
Ned's the one who threw us all for a loop and gave us another character to dive into. But it's a good loop. It's not really a problem, I should say. It was a definite curveball, but as I think most of us have come to know, we have gotten to know a fascinating character with fascinating background that I don't think we've even dived that much into. We've hit little bits and pieces here and there along the way of Chozo LeBec and his journey to join the party. But again, that's what we're going to dive into today, is the motivations behind it and a little bit more of maybe some of the background to the character.
It is interesting. Like, I've tried to sprinkle in bits and pieces of kind of his grander story throughout, but really the character from the beginning was intended to be kind of a plot expediter to join the party. It's like, oh, Ataraxia's gone, now this new guy is here specifically for the purpose of helping these people find Ataraxia and bring him back. So in that way, like, having played that aspect of him, it hasn't really given as many chances for his history to pop up naturally in-game.
Yeah. Well, and him being from such a different world, him being from, I think we've said this, he is an original of the Fey realm of the First World, is that correct?
He is from the material plane originally.
Oh, well, look at there. We're getting a little bit more knocked into it. So, I didn't know that, or at least if you had said that, I had totally missed that fact. I know he is a familiar, obviously, presence in the First World. That's why he's our guide to find the captain, to find Ataraxia. But let's just dive into it. I got a couple questions for Ned here to understand what got him to create what we now know as Chozo LeBec.
Yes.
The first question, why this class? Can you again tell us what is the specific class you are? Because it is a unique class. It's a homebrew class, not a homebrew, because you're not the one creating it, but you found it through third-party means. Tell us about it.
Yes. So way back in the day in 3.5e D&D, they were making classes left and right for absolutely everything. And I'm trying to remember the name of the book off the top of my head. It's something magic, something arcana, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it is a player expansion with some sort of more esoteric, arcane-focused classes, and one of those is the Binder. The idea with the Binder being that it is kind of akin to the Warlock in some ways, except instead of putting all of your eggs in one basket with one really big, powerful entity that gives you all of your powers, you're able to gain a smaller amount of powers from a wider selection of beings. These vestiges, these beings that used to be powerful back in their own time. Maybe they were a god, maybe they were an incredibly powerful mortal hero, but they've been forgotten to time, and now all that really remains of them is just this little sort of shriveled vestige of soul that they're just so eager to be remembered that they're willing to give some of their power to anybody who will offer them a chance to still continue existing in memory, basically.
Obviously, those are crazy amazing details and really cool, intricate ways to build a story. Why this class? Why did you pick this class, though? Obviously, you've told us the coolness of it, but what drew you to this one specifically?
Yeah, way back in the day, I got a text from my friend Christian, who is in our Stonewalkers campaign, and he'd found this third-party class for the War Mage, which is a class that it's a spellcaster, but they only use cantrips, but they find ways to like maximize the effectiveness of those cantrips. And I was like, this is a pretty cool class. Who made this? It's this little publication called Mage Hand Press, which is, I think, just a one-person operation. But I started digging further into all of the different classes that Mage Hand Press has created, and one of them was the Binder, which is they took the original 3.5 class and pretty darn accurately recreated it with 5e rules, taking a lot of the thematics from the original class, but without as much of like the specific, copyright protected detail that the original class had. Because like in the original D&D class, you could bind yourself to like a Sararak the Demi-Lich, who is a notable figure from the Tomb of Horrors. That is a copyright protected character, so they had to come up with their own individual vestiges. But yeah, I was looking through all these different classes, and I saw the binder, and I was like, this is like nothing else I have ever seen before. The thing that really, really drew me to it was, I believe I mentioned in my Meet and Geek or my Crush Squad about druids way back in the day, that I love druids because they're a very sort of toolboxy sort of character, a lot of utility, a lot of different options, a lot of different abilities that they can use to try and solve problems. And with the binder, you can change your role in the party every single day. One day you can be the tank, the next day you're the healer, the next day you're the infiltrator, and there's just so much variety, and you can even change it halfway through the day with the rebinding ritual. And so I saw that and I was like, yep, somebody wrote this exactly for me. This is exactly what I want. Someday I hope I'll be able to play it, and now here we are.
Here we are. And that's the point of D&D, to try new things and to obviously find the thing that interests you the most. Now, another part of Chozo that's very unique, I haven't seen it in many campaigns, is the race. The Birdman, or let's dive into that specifically. Obviously, the race isn't called the Birdman. That's just what I call Chozo. Tell us about this race for your character and why you chose it.
Yeah, I've for a while had this idea of I wanted to play a Corvid-type character, a raven, a crow, whatever the case may be. I don't know why I necessarily had that specific fixation. I don't know, maybe I think the idea originally started popping into my brain during the middle of the pandemic when there were a lot of like memes of plague doctors all over the internet. So maybe that had something to do with it. Yep. But I was looking at the different options that were available, and you've got like, I think the obvious choice would be the Kenku, the D&D class, and there are a lot of really cool abilities that come with that, but it's a little restricted in terms of like it can only do the mimicry thing, which I think they've actually walked that back in the updated version of the Kenku, and now the mimicry is still part of it, but they can still just speak on their own. I'd also looked at maybe doing an Aarakocra that was flavored like a Corvid, but it didn't feel quite right. The one that I ultimately settled on is from the Humblewood expansion, which I backed the Kickstarter way back in the day. Actually, maybe that's even part of what it was, because it was around that same time, right around the pandemic, was when I actually got the physical book in my hands. And there are so many different types of bird races in there, and the Corvum is their take on the raven crow type family. And there are two different branches of those. There's one that's more focused on stealth, but there's one that's more focused on like the wisdom, the knowledge, intelligence aspect of crows, and that is the Kindled Corvum. That's the one I ended up going with. And the reason I chose the black-billed magpie specifically is because they are, I think, the most prevalent corvid where I currently live in East Idaho. Like, any given day of the year, I can walk outside and encounter maybe half a dozen black-billed magpies just while I'm, driving to work or going for a walk or something. And they're, as far as corvids go, they're not just jet black. They've got the cool markings with the white on the belly, the sort of iridescent blue-green feathers around the shoulders and whatnot. So, yeah, that's the reason I went with that one ultimately.
Fun. Tying it to your personal life and manifesting it through our campaign. Cool.
Yes.
Right. This is one I don't think we've explicitly stated. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Ned. But background, obviously in D&D, in part of your character creation and giving you specific abilities or skills is a background, a character having a background. What is your background?
Yes, I'm trying to remember actually off the top of my head. I think it's the archaeologist. Oh. That's the weird thing with choosing your background in D&D is you choose it at the beginning of the campaign and you get some mechanical abilities from it, but often I don't really actually then go on and look back at it very frequently. So yes, the background for Chozo is in fact the archaeologist. Okay. And this also ties in a little bit with the reason why I chose the Kindled Corvum, because the Kindled Corvum has this great ability called Convincing, where you get advantage on charisma checks to convince somebody else about your exceptional knowledge of one of the skills that you decide to be proficient with that you get from the class. And I chose History. And this ties in with the theme of the binder as well, where I guess a little bit of, I don't think this is ever going to come out in the story itself. So a little bit of the background behind Chozo, who he is, how he ended up becoming a binder. The story is he is from Cheliax, which we've heard a little bit about. We ran into those Chelaxians on the sea. They're from the Diabolist nation where they worship devils. And it's a very, very martial sort of rule that they've got going on. There's a lot of inquisition happening up in Cheliax, finding dissension and rooting it out and whatnot. And the idea is that binding is sort of a family trade, as it were, where Chozo's grandfather was a binder, and then his father was a binder, and now Chozo is a binder. And he was the only one who managed to escape the Inquisition in Cheliax when they discovered that there was this little binding lodge happening under their noses. And that was when Chozo ended up becoming a bit of a lone wolf, because a lot of the people around, he's like, okay, well, I can't tell these people that I'm using this binding magic, so I guess I gotta go somewhere else. And if I'm going other places, why not go to all kinds of different planes? And so it becomes this desire to search for the knowledge to find all of these vestiges and to be able to access them and then gain their powers. So that's where we get the Kindled Corvum with the history part. That's where we get the archaeologist. He's going out to these ancient ruins. In fact, the class feature historical knowledge. When you enter a ruin or dungeon, you can correctly ascertain its original purpose and determine its builders, whether those were dwarves, elves, humans, yuan-ti, or some other known race. In addition, you can determine the monetary value of art objects more than a century old. Wow. So this all kind of ties together to being this guy who's kind of a roguish character, but also kind of a huge history nerd.
We got a bird version of Indiana Jones with us.
Hey, look at that.
We just need to give him a hat. Yeah, I think that's really cool, especially the idea of the binder having ties to dead, forgotten gods that are just desperate for someone to know of them and kind of connect to them again. Where do you find those dead, forgotten gods? In dead, forgotten civilizations and dead, forgotten ruins. And that's Chozo's specialty. I really like that idea. I hope, again, who knows? Our campaign has very specific directions right now, but I hope we can maybe find a little way to sprinkle Chozo into getting, maybe doing a little bit of a dungeon delve in ruins. Who knows? Or that could be a one-shot. We have a lot of possibilities for that. But I think that's an intriguing avenue that obviously we can pursue. That's really cool. That's really
cool. We'll play to find out.
The next question is on alignment. And I should say this, because I've said this in every episode, but just to reiterate it, backgrounds and alignments have very much, for a long history of D&D, through the first iteration to about 5e, have been very strict, very, this is who you are, and this is what you must do. And backgrounds it builds your characters even, what are they called? It's a way for you to help create your character, but a lot of people for a long time in D&D felt bound to the personality traits, the ideals, the bonds, and the flaws that you can find on your character sheet. And I think a lot of D&D community is going this direction more. They're more guidelines, as they say. They are definitely ways to help motivate your character, but it's not like a hard and fast rule where, again, like, I'll give you an example of my character, where one of the flaws of Max, I don't think I've ever said this, says, I have a weakness for the pleasures of the world. And that's his flaw. And you're like, wait, what? Number one, it's a guideline. So it's not like Max is finding every, vice imaginable and partaking of it. But the way I helped forge Max's background or just his story is, what's a pleasure? Gambling. What's the thing for gambling? Playing cards. And that helped me kind of get to what Max is going through. I say all this because
there we go.
I want to make sure we understand that I love to explore backgrounds, and the next question that we're going to get to, which is alignment. But it's definitely a way to help you motivate your character, but it is not a hard and fast rule. That's where a lot of D&D parties get stuck, or you have infighting in the players is, well, this is what my character would do because they're lawful good. As we've always said, we have extensive improv backgrounds, a lot of us, and we want to be able to and our characters and find ways to work together. So these are fun ways to find how to make your choices with your background, but also supporting each other. So I just wanted to give that caveat to make sure that if people are being like, wait, why aren't they diving more into this? And why aren't they holding fast and true? They're guidelines. The main purpose of D&D is to have fun with friends. And that's what we're trying to do. With that note, alignment. What's Chozo's alignment?
Yes, I have a fascination with the idea of what the true neutral alignment looks like and the different ways in which you might manifest that sort of sitting on the boundary between law and chaos and between good and evil, and how does that manifest? So like Fleeple, I started him out neutral because it's like, all right, he's got this new god that he's worshiping, but also he's a little rat lizard. So there's kind of our balance between law and chaos. And, Bahamut is a benevolent deity, but also he's got kind of this like generational evil that he feels like is sort of imposed upon him. So that's kind of the middle point between good and evil. By the end, he had kind of leaned more in the direction of, I think, neutral good. Ataraxia, I started him as neutral good in hopes that he could be more of a generally benevolent character, but then he became the captain and had to order some people to be executed, and then he became true neutral, which it's interesting with him because it's just like, hey, when you can only feel one thing, what really is your sense of good and evil and of law and chaos? Chozo, I feel like he fits maybe more of kind of like what you might expect a true neutral character to be, where he's a lone wolf, he's out there by himself, following his own goals, and trying to do right by people along the way, but more of an ends justify the means kind of guy, where in the presence of the rest of this crew, where he feels like maybe he has a chance to fit in, he is being, generally speaking, a bit more benevolent, but you can tell he has a bit more of a checkered past than any of the other characters I've played. Yeah, he's this guy where he doesn't want to ruffle too many feathers, but he wants to get what he wants. So that's where I think he kind of fits in that perfect central point of true neutrality.
For sure. I think it fits also really well with what you've talked about, the archaeologist, the binder, looking into these dead gods. Dead gods are good, dead gods are bad. And if you just want to have access to their knowledge, to their power, you're willing to obviously walk in the gray, if you will, to balance both getting access to the good and getting access to the power, at least, of the bad. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. At the very same time, I can be bound to Asclepius the physician, who is a healer, a very benevolent vestige, and at the same time, La Diablesse, however you pronounce it, the devil woman, and she's all about, casting fear into people's hearts. I could be bound to both of those at exactly the same time, and that's kind of another aspect of the neutrality, is each of these vestiges kind of pulls you a little bit in its own direction, and so that kind of necessity pulls you into the middle of all of them, the more different ones you bind to.
Yeah. I don't think I've asked anybody else this, but this is, I think, the last Meet and Geek character background building episode that we're going to do, because unless we introduce more characters this campaign, which I don't think we're planning on, who knows? Things can happen.
Who knows?
But let's actually go through real quick. This is something I probably should have gone through with everybody else. Who knows? Maybe I'll do a mini episode where I interview everybody and we'll shoot through them. Can you tell us personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws?
I did not write any of those down for Chozo because I'm using a modified character sheet that I got from Mage Hand Press, and it doesn't actually include those specific aspects on here, unfortunately.
Hey, and that's okay. Again, it's D&D. Like we said, these are guidelines. They are not hard and fast things that have to be cemented. I will ask you, though, what do you think is Chozo's ultimate ideal? Like, this is my mantra to live by.
Yeah, I think it would go in with the idea of the binder kind of as written. We talked about this somewhat in the Crunch Squad episode, but it's a pretty edgelord sort of class where it's like you're tearing your soul apart into all these different pieces so you can wrest power from these vestiges. And the direction I've decided to take it is a much more altruistic, a much kinder way of like, hey, you can give me some power, that's great, but also I just want to remember you and who you were and why you are worth remembering. And so I think that is kind of his ultimate ideal, is to make sure that those memories are preserved.
Yeah, I really like that approach, because you could definitely go the route of, and you see this in a lot of fantasy, where you're willing to get power at any cost, so you're almost the Horcrux, if you will. You're dividing your soul to gain more power and to gain more abilities. But I really like that you're saying, instead of it being almost the warlock relationship, where it's, hey, like, I'll do your bidding, just give me power, it's more of, I will take care of you so you can keep honestly existing. And the way you can keep existing, I mean, that's in the basics of religion. For a god to exist, if you will, in terms of like the world of fantasy, is to be believed in. And so it's, hey, if you want me to believe in you, vestige that I've dug up out of, an archaeologist site, a ruin, I need to see some of your power. So let me have some of that. And I really like that it's a very, what's the term in nature? The symbiotic relationship?
Symbiotic. Yeah. Yeah. It's also kind of a bit of a reversal on the idea of patronage, where when you're a warlock, you have a patron that is the being that is giving you all of your power, thematically in exchange for you doing things for them. But if you look at sort of the more classical idea of being a patron, like a patron of the arts, that's where Patreon gets its name from. When you support somebody on Patreon, you become a patron of that artist. You are making their work possible through your support. And so in this way, Chozo is kind of becoming a patron to all of these vestiges by giving them a chance to continue to, enact their works on the world.
That's really cool. I love that perspective to bring to this character and some of the motivations they have. Now, this will lead into my next question, which I won't quite get to, but on that sheet, on your character sheet where you have all those things to possibly fill out, one question I will ask, what do you think is a little bit of the flaws of Chozo? What are some of the maybe weaknesses or faults that he might know or might not know?
Yeah, I think his biggest flaw is I've used the term lone wolf a few times already during this episode, and that's the way that Chozo has kind of been forced to operate for quite a while. Early on, he was like...
Growing up in that society, yeah.
Yeah, very early on, he was like, okay, the thing that I'm doing is dangerous to talk about publicly because I might get executed by the Inquisition if I'm talking about it. And so he going off on his own, and on occasion meeting up with new people and maybe trying to attach himself to a crew for a little bit, but ultimately being too weird for those people to want to keep around for very long. And so I think that is kind of his ultimate flaw, is his belief that, and I think this is kind of the lie that he has convinced himself, is that he will only ever be able to function as a lone wolf and that he won't be able to rely on other people.
Yeah. That's the last question right there, is what lie does your character believe in? And I think that fits right along with what you're talking about of, I can do this on my own and I don't need other people. Not even that you don't need other people, because obviously Chozo's done pretty well for himself, at least so far in his life, it seems. But there's no benefit to being with other people. I think that's really the lie. And that I would assume, and you can maybe lend some insight to the thinking of your character, that he's starting to see maybe the cracks in that ideology or that belief.
Yeah, there's this quote that I don't know the entirety of the quote off the top of my head, but it's from Dinah Maria Mulock Craik. And it's this quote about like the joy of having a friend, someone that you're so close to that you can just let everything out, all of the wheat along with the chaff, all of your deepest thoughts and interests and doubts and desires, with the knowledge that they will be accepted with loving hands and that those hands will separate the chaff from what is worth holding on to. And I think Chozo, in so many instances, kind of like, me, I was a massive nerd growing up, and when you're a massive nerd growing up, eventually you kind of reach this point where you start to learn the rules of like, oh, these are the things that I don't talk about in polite society. And so being able to find those people around who you can be a massive nerd, that is something that's very valuable. And Chozo has finally found this group of people where it's like, hey, I can be a total weirdo freak with all of this strange magic and like all these weird alterations that happen to my body because of this brand of magic that I practice, and still have people realize that I am a valuable addition to this team.
Yeah. I think especially when we started out with Chozo was the means to the end. Like, we need him to get back to the captain. So he's almost not even a person, but a vehicle to that. I feel like we've slowly chipped away at that to have more binding, or not binding, that's the wrong term because that's your class, but more understanding of the person, and realizing that it's not just, hey, you're getting us there and goodbye, but oh no, you have value. You've actually given us not just guidance on how to get there, but just on how to function, how to live, how to be a better party. And I'm hoping we can keep, I mean, who knows where the podcast will lead us and where characters will go and everything. But hopefully we can tap into that a little bit more to have a great, if not wrap up, a great continuing journey for it.
Yeah, we'll have to see, because, Thomas and I have been trying to figure out, when we finally do reconnect with Ataraxia, what's going to happen. And we've had some comments in the Patreon from some of the patrons who are like, well, shoot, I really like Chozo now. I don't want to lose him. So we'll see what happens with good old Chozo down the line.
Do you think there's a moment where Chozo, could you pinpoint a moment where as you're talking about the lie, if you will, that Chozo believes, where he's saying, I can do it on my own, there's no benefit to having others, where Can you pinpoint a moment where maybe that really started to paradigm shift away from that for him, or at least start to question it?
I think it happened pretty early on, actually, because, I mean, we've sort of called out in the past, like, if you look at this D&D party, it's like, okay, we've got the angel, the rabbit, the goat, and the dragon, and we're all just a big bunch of weirdos who all got stuck on a ship together. So I think it was pretty easy quite early on for Chozo to be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, these people are weird too. If there's going to be a group of people that I would fit in with, it's probably these guys. Over time, starting to, as he's actively worked to ingratiate himself to show, hey, I'm willing to support, starting to get some of those moments of connection back. And in subtle moments, like when Chozo and Max are walking away from the Sevenfold Cynosure, and Buster and Ignis are just floating around having their comedy in space moment. And Max is like, Chozo, do you think I did the right thing? It's those kind of moments where Chozo is like, somebody else is actually opening up to me and asking me for my thoughts and valuing that. And then ultimately getting to the point where, I mean, by the time this episode is releasing, we should have already released the episode where we're in Erzul's labyrinth, and Buster turns to Chozo and says, like, man, I think we could have been best friends if we could have just met under chiller circumstances. And yeah, I think it's been a journey for him to get to the point where he does feel a sense of acceptance, and probably will continue to be a journey, because you don't suddenly just lose all of your self-insecurities. But I think he's definitely moving in a good direction.
Yeah. It's really enjoyable to see. And I think you bring up a very good point of almost seeing this crew of such an odd menagerie, and being like, if they can somehow figure out ways to work together, even with almost feeling diametrically opposed at times, you can actually work with others. And even if they disagree with you, you can somehow keep it going. And I think that's a really cool, at least moment for character reflection. Even if we're not seeing it very up front in the episodes, it's definitely cool to see the background workings that are going on. And that's the point of this episode, after all, is character background building.
And maybe now we can go back and rename the Satyr song to the Menagerie, like you suggested way back at the beginning of the campaign.
Right. That's right. I did suggest that. We had a couple of ship names that we were floating around. One was the Menagerie, because of all of us being animals except for Mickey's character. And turns out when Ned threw another character in, he went, how about another animal?
Yeah.
Let's get that in. Oh boy.
It's even more appropriate.
It is. And again, we're just a menagerie floating along in a sea of not just water, but also astral planery.
So true.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's bonus episode of I Cast Fireball. We hope you've enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed diving into the building of our characters and the backgrounds we've created. For wherever you get your podcasts from, please leave us a review. Please, please, please. We love the emails. I'm not going to discourage the emails because they're awesome, which I'll get to in a second, kind of how you can do that. But the reviews also help us get circulation too. So please leave us a review. It helps boost our ratings throughout each podcast service. It puts our show on other people's recommended feeds, and it lets us know that you like what we're doing. If you want to write something, again, a little bit more in-depth, a longer review, you can email us at icastfireball2020@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we're hoping to get the word out and set this podcast on fire. And you will get special shout-outs at the end of our episodes with those reviews and or email. To get the most recent up-to-date content for all that's there, please follow us on Instagram, on Twitter at our handle, ICastFireball20. We sometimes throw on really cool clips. Josh is actually diving into more and more of creating kind of little moments of, how would you describe them, Ned? They're not cartoons. What are they?
They're kind of, I don't know, somewhere between like an animatic, I don't know. It's hard to describe exactly what they are, but they're cool. You should go watch them.
They're very cool and very creative, and Josh has done an amazing job creating them. So go watch them. They're on all of our different social media feeds that we just talked about. They also can, sometimes as we post, can give insight from the players or the DM, give you some obviously behind the scenes, and joining our Discord will give you a lot of that. We have a lot of Discord stuff going on. So just want to give a quick shout out to our sister podcast, Improv Tabletop, where Ned takes a turn at being the GM. They have amazing campaigns following a bunch of different tabletop systems and different stories from Avatar Legends, diving into different versions of the Sanderson world, even diving into Muppets. Oh my gosh, there's so many things, and a lot of them are based around the Fate accelerated tabletop system, but they dive into other systems too. They're just overall fun. Whether you like tabletop games, improvisation, or just hearing more from Ned and his creative mind, we recommend you go have a listen to Improv Tabletop. Lastly, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends and fellow wacky adventurers. Until next time, I'm Jacob, your host for our special Meet and Geek bonus episodes, and with me today was...
I'm Ned, playing Chozo LeBec. And Chozo LeBec. LeBec is French for the bee.
Oh, it is. Well,
also, Ataraxia. Yeah. Also playing Ataraxia K.
Thanks for everybody for listening. Let's keep that fire going, and we will see you all next time.